Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. From the right, I'm Gary Polland.
And from the left, I'm David Jones.
Tonight we welcome Congressman Ted Poe of the 2nd Congressional District of Texas and his opponent in the fall election, David Smith, who is a computer analyst and libertarian candidate for Congress. No Democrat appeared because no Democrat ran, David.
Because I'm here, Gary. That's all Ted Poe needs is me, you know? Are you ready to go on this,
yes, sir.
Congressman Poe? You just might be in the majority, is what people are saying after November. I'm assuming that you may return to Congress. If you are in the majority, what will be your position of seniority in the two committees where you are active, and what do you hope to accomplish if you're in a majority?
Well, I'm on the Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee, Immigration Subcommittee and Terrorism Subcommittee in both. But the plan is, when the Conservatives take over the House of Representatives, is to get our economy in order. And the first thing we do is quit spending so much money that we don't have. Quit borrowing money from the Chinese, not raise taxes, but cut taxes. That provides economic incentive for businesses to hire more people and cut back the role of government in regulating our lives. The government is totally out of control and unresponsive to most needs of American citizens. That's why the Conservatives have a plan to bring government that's gone wild under control, fix the economy by reducing taxes, cut the spending, quit giving so much money to foreign countries that hate us. We don't need to pay them to hate us. They'll do it on their own. But those are some of the ideas. And, of course, the main one would be border security, secure our national sovereignty, which this administration and previous administrations has not done.
So my guess, Mr. Smith, is that you would say that sounds like more of the same that happened between 2000 and 2008 that got us into the ditch that we're in right now, cutting taxes and deregulating the economy, which let all the Wall Street ruin our lives.
What we're seeing is we constantly hear this every election. Nothing ever changes. They may not tax the people. They may turn around and tax business, which we start losing jobs, or vice versa. It doesn't matter who's in office. It seems it's the same thing every election.
Well, Congressman Poe, why is it going to be different this time if the Republicans take over?
Because the liberals, David, have been in charge for the last 4 years. And because the liberals are in charge, they never saw a tax increase they wouldn't vote for, spending programs that they wouldn't vote for. So it's not accurate that we have not been fighting this. The Conservatives, who are in the minority, have been fighting big government, have been fighting tax increases, and we need to get the majority so we can make this come true. When I took office in 2004, I took a pledge I'd never vote for a bill that required a tax increase. I have never voted for a bill that requires a tax increase. I'm one of 17 members of Congress, only 17, that have voted against every bailout, every stimulus bill. So conservatives are not in the majority, therefore we have not been able to turn this socialistic philosophy of the current administration around. Get in control, we will.
Well, I was going to ask you, David, as a libertarian, do you see differences between how Republicans nationally have acted, except for Congressman Poe, of course, and how Democrats nationally have acted on national issues?
They're all on the same sliding scale, and I will have to say Congressman Poe has done a better job than just about all of them up there. But still, I'd like to see more of cut the spending, as he has said. I'd like to see something done on our border security. I'd like to see something done on the immigration. But most of all, I'd like to see someone stand out on the steps and let the people know what's going on. I've knocked on 87,000 doors, and most of them have no clue.
Sadly for your candidacy, Mr. Smith, he is representing the Republican Party, and they have a few more votes in the Congress than you do. Maybe you can address how it is that things will be different with Speaker Boehner, who is going to take over if Congressman Poe gets his way.
My thing is, I'm not going up there to be a career politician. I figure 1 to 2 terms, and I'm done. But I will stand out on the steps, and I will let people know what's going on. I don't care how upset anyone in Congress gets. I don't care what the Senate says. I don't care what the President says. People deserve to know what's going on. That's the big difference.
You see my position on this, Judge Poe? 92% voting record in support of your party's position. That makes you a reliable Republican, not just a conservative.
Conservative. That's 92% conservative votes. I am probably the most vocal member of Congress. I have spoken more on the House floor in the last 3 years than any member of Congress in either party. So my positions are quite well known, and I stand for the people on the conservative agenda. That's why I come back every weekend to the state of Texas. I don't live in Washington. I work up there. But I come back every weekend to be with the normal people to see how they feel. So I personally and other conservatives are very strong advocates. What we have to do is make sure that when the Republican Party takes over, that they have a conservative plan, that it is not just a moderate plan, but a direction change in our country from big government solving all of our problems, which it doesn't do very well, to more individual liberty, to us solving our own problems, and actually reinstating the concept of capitalism, which seems to be a word that the federal government is opposed to. So it's a direction change, and the only way we can do that is to elect more conservatives in the House of Representatives. And then we could even do things like defund the health care bill, which most Americans are opposed to. Appropriations bills start in the House of Representatives. Next year, we cannot fund the health care bill, and then replace it with common sense ideas. So there are some things we can do. We have to have the majority to do that.
Well, David, let's talk about 1994. Remember 1994? That was the Gingrich Revolution, where the Republicans took control of the House and the Senate for the first time in many, many years. Do you see any comparison between 2010 and 1994?
Actually, I was just getting ready to say something because, again, the Republicans had control of the House many times now. What has changed? Not a thing. Nothing had got done on border security. Nothing has been done on immigration other than Reagan let 3 million people become citizens, which I have just recently found out that not many of them are still farm workers. They moved up and took more jobs. So, and now we got 16 to 20 million more over here. Now, I'm not seeing any change. What I see is the same thing, and I'm looking to change that. We may not have the House now, but we will.
Well, I suppose that you agree then with the Democratic majority in the House, because Judge Poe did not, who authorized the spending of several billions of dollars to fight the drug war in Mexico and Central America. He voted against that appropriation. Where do you differ there?
You know, I agree with Congressman Poe on many things. I agree with his voting record most of the time. As far as drugs go, I think that we have been losing a battle that needs to change. We need to do something different. Something isn't right. I've talked to several people, law enforcement agencies, that say, you know, they take about half these drugs that are coming across the border and they just disappear.
You see what I'm saying? You fought the drug war as a judge, and here you're voting against it in our foreign relations.
Let's be clear. I voted against giving Mexico more American money. Mexico is a corrupt nation, especially in their law enforcement. We sent them $1 billion, and we don't know where any of that money went. That money should have stayed on the American side of the border to help our border sheriffs and our border patrol protect the sovereignty of the border and keep everybody from coming in unless they have permission. So Mexico is a failed state, in my opinion, and federal government, American citizens should not continue to send money down to Mexico where it disappears. One comment, as you know, I've only been in Congress 4 years, and the last 4 years, rather, have all been controlled by the Democrats. And so to make the comment that the Republicans were in control and they didn't do anything, I agree with that, because my first term was the last 2 years of the Bush, or the last 2 years that Congress was controlled by the Republicans. I said it then, I say it now. The Republicans have a lot of blame to go on why the country's economy has gotten out of control in big federal spending. But if we look to the future, it's only going to be the conservatives in the House of Representatives that rein in government control. Whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats are in control, we have to have a majority of conservatives. in both parties.
You mentioned, and you both have talked about border security. Let's talk about the politics of border security. The Democrats seem to be playing this as a way to divide Republicans or Libertarians from the Hispanic vote bloc, implying that if you're for border security, you're anti-Hispanic. Any truth to that?
Well, of course not. It's a separate issue. Border security is a responsibility of the federal government primarily. It's totally failed. For years it's failed. Not just this administration. I wish it would be the last, but it has. Administrations, for political reasons, have given a wink and a nod to open borders. And unfortunately, border security is a national security issue. And because the federal government hasn't secured the borders, it's gotten worse. And it has nothing to do with race. People down on the Texas-Mexico border, on both sides of the border, Mexicans and Americans, live in fear because of the violence on the border. And so we must secure the border, separate that issue from the concept of immigration and reforming the immigration process. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, is put the National Guard on the border and put them on the border, not behind.
I guess a true libertarian position or a true constitutionalist position would be that we don't need to have a state like Arizona decide how we're going to enforce federal law. That seems to go against, 200 years of constitutional adjudication? Somebody tell me how I'm wrong here.
Actually, and make sure I make this clear, I'm a libertarian with a twist. I'm more conservative than most can imagine. First off, yes, I agree. Secure that border. We need to lock it down tighter than a drum. For not so much the immigration issue, but let's look at the crime. 327 young girls under the age of 13 were carried south of the border just last year. Over half of them that were found were actually raped and not shot, not stabbed, but actually beaten to death. So, yeah, I'm going to agree with Congressman Poe. Yes, we need to do that. But we also have a federal issue. We, over 500 times in the past 5 years, we've had the Mexican military either fly or drive into the United States and actually shoot up things, shoot our neighborhoods. We got to stop that.
Well, I know that in El Paso they had one murder in 2009, and right across the border in Juarez, I believe that's the local economy over there, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, in the drug war killing. The city councilman, you talk about listening to people, the city council of El Paso says we have to decriminalize marijuana to some extent to reduce the demand. I mean, what's wrong with doing something about the demand for drugs in our own country?
Well, the answer is not to decriminalize drugs. The answer is long-term Americans have to remove their addiction to all kinds of drugs. And unfortunately, that's going to be a social problem that we have to deal with. If you decriminalize something, you encourage the use of it. Mexico decriminalized the use of all drugs, small amounts. And all it has done in Mexico is increase the addiction to drugs in Mexico. They have as bad or maybe worse than any country in North America on abuse of drugs. And part of that is because they have decriminalized the use of drugs. And so on your question, though, it is not, in my opinion, the sole responsibility of the federal government to protect the borders. It is their primary concern. But when they have failed to do so, as they have failed to do in Arizona, people to protect themselves, I think, have, especially the Arizona law, is constitutional and gives them the right to protect the safety of the people in Arizona. We'll see how that plays out with the United States Supreme Court on the constitutionality of the Arizona law. But if that's what you're referring to, I think they had to do it because the federal government has not done anything for years.
David, Congressman Poe mentioned tax cuts as part of his agenda. The Bush tax cuts are scheduled to go away at the end of the year if Congress takes no action, which means average tax rates go up by 10%, capital gains goes up by a third. Where do you stand on those tax cuts?
Well, I'm all for reducing the taxes more than probably anyone. Let's look at it this way. They may make those tax cuts go away. And if they do keep them, where are they going to get the taxes next time? Give the Democrats another week, and they'll find a way to tax us.
Well, Congressman Poe voted with the Democrats. when the leader of the Democratic Party offered a pay-as-you-go resolution. It says you can't do anything that takes away from any surplus, or you can't add to the deficit with any bill. All right? He voted, and the Democrats then, I guess you'd both have to say, are governing responsibly, as Poe indicates with his support for that measure.
The pay-go idea is an idea, as you have expressed, that we won't raise taxes to pay for this bill. The problem is, David, with your party, they continue to waive the pay-go provision on this massive legislation, such as in health care and the stimulus bill. They waive it as a point of rule of the procedure, and so therefore pay-go doesn't apply to big spending in the Democratic Party because your party continually waives that provision.
Well, Larry, thanks for that vote on that, though. They also waived it, Congressman Poe, in extending unemployment benefits to people in your congressional district. How many thousands of people were given the opportunity to pay bills, pay rent, and feed their children? And that measure, which I take it you voted against.
I voted against it because it wasn't paid for. It's taking more federal money, spending it, borrowing the money from China. David, every dollar we spend, federal government spends, 42 cents of that dollar is debt that has to be paid off. We have to borrow that money to pay it off. We're paying $300 billion a year in interest to foreign countries. So it wasn't paid for. And second, people already get 99 weeks of unemployment. And continuing to expand it, as some economists have said, all that does is prolong the spending and also prolongs people being on unemployment rather than finding them jobs. The answer is not to pay people not to work, but to find jobs for them. And the way you find jobs for them is to cut federal spending and regulations and let businesses create those jobs. And they can't do it now because of the atmosphere of the government running roughshod over small businesses.
And I'm going to jump in on this one. I've been out of work since December. And I got 90 days of unemployment, and then they took me off. So
that's because you're a libertarian, I guess.
Well, you probably have to prove that you're looking for work, and running for Congress is not that.
Oh, I have more than proved. I was applying to jobs all day long.
But you can receive up to 99 weeks of unemployment under federal law currently.
What they are doing, they are telling people that they can take a temporary job, but as soon as that temporary job is up, boom, they're off, and they can't draw it.
Sounds like you should submit a complaint to your office.
Actually, I have.
I wanted to ask you, Congressman Poe, about this recently passed new stimulus bill to stimulate, I guess, or to bail out states and local communities that the Democrats just shoved through. I'm sure you voted against. I'm particularly interested in the Lloyd Doggett amendment, Lloyd Doggett being a Democratic congressman from Texas who put in a provision that clearly discriminates against Texas. How did this happen, and what does Texas need to do about it?
The bill that was rushed to the House floor, where we all had to run back to Washington and vote on, was brought to the House floor without the committee process, without amendments. It was a take-it-or-leave-it bill. It's $26 billion of money we do not have, so we're going to borrow that money again. And it's supposed to help the education system. But in Texas, there's a specific portion of the bill that singles out Texas and requires that Texas do certain things with the $800 million. In other words, the governor must certify and promise that he will not reduce any education funds under any circumstances, which he cannot certify because of the Texas Constitution, prohibits him from doing that. Lloyd Doggett, I think, put it in the bill because he knew the governor couldn't take the money, and he did it to make him look bad to help his opponent in the November election. It was all political, had nothing to do with helping the kids in the state of Texas because we can't take the money constitutionally.
Was pay-go also waived on this bill?
Oh, yes. Now, they did take some money from food stamp recipients, but it is not complete. The bill, $26 billion, is not completely paid for.
So how are you going to pay for the $700 billion that we will lose when we do, if we continue with the Bush tax cuts, which will be monies that the top 1% of income earners in the United States will get if we extend those tax cuts? How are you going to pay for that loss of revenue?
All right. Here's first thing is the tax cuts applied to people who paid taxes. Everybody that paid income tax are some way affected by the tax cut. So it's not just the top 1%. How do we come up with that revenue? Well, we come up with the revenue by not spending $700 billion. We cut back federal spending. That's the problem, David.
And you start with the $800 billion in the defense budget and the 700 and so bases throughout the world that we are now occupying?
Well, you look at every government program and every department, and every one of them must justify their existence before Congress, or they should be eliminated, or their funding should be cut. Now, as far as defense spending, we need to finish the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We need to continue to give those troops the money that they need to finish that. But when it comes to other issues, like we got troops all over the world, why do we still have 50,000 troops in Germany? Why do we have 35,000 troops in Korea and Japan? I don't think we need those troops overseas. And so, we need to take care of our homeland. But defense spending, we look at that, but we look at all the other programs like the EPA and other organizations that waste government money on bad regulations. But across the board, we need to look at them and cut spending where we can. When a government program gets funded, it's funded forever. And the next year, Congress, when it has a budget, of course we don't have a budget this year, we didn't operate without one, just gives it more money. All of that has to cease, and we reevaluate how we spend all of our money. Like I said, foreign aid that we give to all the countries in the world, and most of the countries in the world, we need to reevaluate our foreign relationship and our foreign aid and cut back and quit giving money to countries. We need to take care of our people at home first.
We need to rebuild America, not Iraq and Afghanistan, is another argument that I think I heard in there.
Actually, I'm wondering when our troops are going to come home. Why are we over there rebuilding their country? Iraq, Afghanistan, we're rebuilding them.
That's my question.
I want our troops to come home. If anything, we should have been in a 10-day war, come home, let them spend the next 50 years rebuilding their own country.
I wanted to go through the areas of the world, and you kind of started that, but I want to get a take from both of you of what's going on and what the United States, if anything, should do. So I'm going to mention countries and get your reaction. Judge Poe, we'll start with Iran.
Iran is the world threat. We need to be very serious about their threats because Ahmadinejad has said when he gets nuclear weapons, he wants to destroy Israel and then Western Europe and us. I think he's serious. He's not a joke. He's serious about this, and we have to be vigilant about making sure he does not obtain nuclear weapons, and he is the world threat along with North Korea.
David?
I'm curious because I haven't heard that he was going to come out with nuclear weapons. Last I heard it was all for medical use.
Well, anybody who believes that is
I
not
don't
dealing in
believe
the
it.
real world.
This is just news that this is just now coming out.
He's already said that he wants to destroy Israel. He's made that clear ever since that dictator took power, and I think we need to be very concerned about the state of Israel as well. They're our greatest ally in the Middle East, maybe in the world, and make sure they understand and the world knows that we support Israel and their right to exist. They're surrounded by enemies who want to destroy them, not just Ahmadinejad and Iran. Okay,
China. David, you can have first.
Leave them alone. Why mess with them?
Yeah, they're helping us out, aren't they?
They're our bankers.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate that we are beholden to China with so much of our debt. And part of that problem is, of course, that we're spending money we shouldn't have. We borrow it from the Chinese at exorbitant interest rates. So we need to wean off from depending on China for our financial stability. I'm always concerned about China's ability to manufacture products. They have. We now know how many bad products they have sent to the United States, from lead in our paint for children to the poison in the dog food and all of those things. So China is not, I don't think, our ally. We should deal with them at arm's length.
Okay, and then you mentioned Iraq and Afghanistan. Is this administration, Congressman Poe, have a plan to end these wars successfully and bring the troops home?
The plan, of course, for Iraq is at the end of this month that our troops will start sizing down and come back home. Afghanistan next year.
You support the first?
Yes. Plan. I have been to both Iraq and Afghanistan numerous times. I have seen our troops. We're probably, I wish all Americans could see how well our troops are doing. They were put over there for America's self-interest. I think that as soon as our self-interest is fulfilled, and when General Petraeus wins the war in Afghanistan, that we bring our troops home. But the decision was made years ago, long before I ever went to Congress, to get involved in both of those wars, and rather than just turn and run as many of the Iraqis and Afghanistan folks have fought for a while. We have to finish our job, then come home as soon as the job's over, give that country back to the people
we only have
who
a
it
minute.
belongs to.
I'm sorry, we only have a minute, Judge Pope. Maybe you can tell us what the number is going to be in Congress after November. What number of Republicans will be in the House of Representatives?
Well, I can't tell you that, David, because I don't know. But it will be close, whether conservatives take over the House of Representatives or not. I don't know if it'll occur, but it'll be a very close decision after the November 2nd election.
And you won't have the Senate, so I guess we'll have a stalemate in the Congress.
No, because in the House of Representatives, funding bills come from the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives can prevent some of these tremendously large, wasteful, liberal spending policies of this administration from being funded. That's why it's important to take over the House of Representatives and have the conservatives in control.
He's going to take over the House of Representatives.
Well, and
That's
David,
right.
you may have friends because there are libertarian Republicans running. Rand Paul and Sharon Engel in Nevada, both
And good luck
libertarian
to you.
Republicans.
Good luck to you, David
Thank
Smith. You as well, Congressman Poe. And you too out there. Thanks for joining us. And we invite you, of course, to visit our home online at HoustonPBS.org. Click on the local program bar for Red, White, and Blue. And read about our guests, watch the shows, along with our follow-up discussion. And until next time, get informed and get active.